let's look at this other image, which is image B1. And this is the main picture on another vase, very similar morphologically to the vase we saw earlier, which was image A. And this one is called the Boston Hydria. In the portico, you see an old man making a gesture with his hand. And then behind the old man, further away from us, is an old woman making another gesture like this. That's what you have at the extreme left. Then 1/3 into the picture, you see Achilles in the moment of stepping off the chariot. Some people would argue that he's stepping on. I'll make a close reading case that he's stepping off. In any case, there he is with 1 foot on the chariot platform, 1 foot off the chariot platform. Under his feet, you see the corpse of Hector. And the corpse of Hector is supposed to be mutilated, but he's not. It's because, as we know from the Iliad version, Apollo keeps beautifying it every second. So every second that Achilles is trying to mutilate and make ugly and horrifying the body of Hector, it stays beautiful. He stays forever in this picture. Le beau mort, the beautiful corpse. And he's labeled, and the artist has misspelled his name. There's an extra R that shouldn't be there, but visual artists are not necessarily verbal artists, so it's okay. Shall we spell out the letters? It's E, K, T, and then R, long O, R. So it reads Hector instead of Hector. So now we've covered sort of 1/3. Now we keep going towards the center. Now we look at the chariot driver, and the thing on the back of the chariot driver is a shield, which is kind of illogical because we also see Achilles wearing a shield already. So why is the chariot driver wearing a shield? Let's not worry about that. The important thing is that again, you see a female figure that is obstructing the momentum of the chariot. And the female figure is making this gesture. And again, let's kill the suspense. This gesture is signaling the emotion of pity as expressed by lament. And then you notice that this female figure is hovering. She has not landed yet, so she has descended from the heavens above. Now we go to the right-hand side of the picture, and we see the sēma again. And again, it's not just a tomb of a hero, it's also a turning post. Whose tomb is it? Well, it's labeled because near the top of the sēma, there's lettering that says Patroklos. And it's Patroklos. And in this case, the small figure of Patroklos, who is hovering in the air, is appropriately endowed with wings, which was not the case in the Münster Hydria. And in this case, what's guarding the sēma is not a lion, but a snake. So again, we see the shifting signifier. And the painting we see here has many things that can be compared with the main painting that we saw on the Münster Hydria. Here in the Boston Hydria, however, the focus is different. Whereas in the Münster Hydria, right at center stage, you saw the tomb of Patroklos, which was also the turning point for a chariot race. Here, that same tomb of Patroklos, which is also a tomb for the chariot race in honor of Patroklos, is off to the side. It's off there to the right. And instead of seeing a full view of the 4 horses that draw the chariot, you see only their backsides. They're already making the round. They're already taking that U-turn in this counterclockwise trajectory of a chariot race. So then what is the focus here? The focus here, what's right in the dead center, is this figure who seems to be descending from the heavens above. Why do I say that? Because you look at the dance step that is configured for her feet. She has not yet landed from the air, and it's as if she were singing and dancing. And even her hand gesture is part of the choreography of what we can call pity. And we've talked about this before, that lamentation is not just singing, it's also motor activity, it's bodily language, both by the main performer and by the whole group that is interacting with the main performer. So you can think of this as a snapshot of a choreographic moment. It's a choreographic moment of expressing pity. And even this particular gesture, when we do enough comparisons, will be signaling the emotion of pity. So that is here the central preoccupation. It's not the tomb of Patroklos, which is over to the side. It's not the chariot team, which is over to the side. And it's not even the miniature vision of Patroklos, the less than life-size vision of Patroklos, who is also off to the side. So what's the distraction here? Isn't it interesting that it comes from a superhuman force that comes from another world? And when we read our Iliad, we'll figure out this must be from Olympus, and this female figure must be the messenger of the gods. Or let's be more precise, the female messenger, because there is also a male messenger of the gods, and that's Hermes. But this female messenger, whose name is Iris, as we know from the Iliad, is stopping or trying to stop what's going on. Well, what's going on? We see the dragging of the corpse of Hector. And one thing that I've tried to be emphasizing from the beginning is that heroes in the ancient world can commit morally questionable acts. And the idea of trying to mutilate the corpse of your enemy is not morally sanctioned. So we can't make excuses for Achilles for doing this. And in fact, even the gods are horrified that the main hero of the Iliad would be so angry that he would stoop to such acts of bestiality, brutality.
So even though we're visioning this, it's not condoning what's happening.
It's envisioning but not condoning, just as the many atrocities we see in epic and in tragedy are not condoned. They're part of the moral agenda of how we react to them. And could I say that you would say, well, this is an apobatic moment. Well, it's an apobatic moment, but it's ruined by the fact that the hero is trying to mutilate the corpse of his enemy. So it doesn't make sense as an athletic event.
So he's getting something wrong here. So there's
something
off.
is very, very, very wrong. And so this goes back to something that I argue over and over again in my write-ups and in my close readings. And I can formulate it very simply, is that catastrophe in myth can correspond to normalcy in ritual. So if we think of Athenians in the 5th and 4th century reenacting the moment when Achilles steps off the chariot or steps onto the chariot, what they're reenacting is a purifying version of what happened in a very corrupting way originally. And that's why we, everyday people who are engaged in athletics, have to make up for something that was larger than life, extremely important but flawed in some way.
So you're saying athletics itself is ritual?
Athletics itself is ritual. Athletics itself is a way of compensating for the lives of heroes, both in their good moments and bad moments. And ritual in general is a reenactment of myth. So that's what's going on. And what's confusing to us about these pictures is that these pictures have it both ways. They show an action as if it were already an athletic event. And that's fine. We say, oh, technically, Achilles can be an athlete. He can be an apobatic athlete. But at the same time, you still see the motivation of the original myth, which is, look, something very bad happened, and that has to be fixed. This great apobatic moment here is also a moment of connecting with the feelings of people you don't want to love, people you want to hate. So it's an amazing way of retelling what we get to absorb when we read Iliad 23 and 24. I'm not saying this is based on Iliad 23 and 24. That would be too simplistic. But the agenda, the moral agenda of that part of the Iliad, those agenda are replayed here in one snapshot.
Which is a double exposure.
Which is a double exposure or a multiple exposure.